Hey everyone, I'm Ace of Clay and welcome to another sculpting video. If you're new here, I'm a sculptor and every week I make a new sculpture. Today we're back in Middle-earth and I'm sculpting another Lord of the Rings character, Tom Bombadil. Now if you're only familiar with Peter Jackson's trilogy and you haven't read the books, you may not know who Tom Bombadil is. Tom Bombadil is a supporting character that helps Frodo and company on their journey to destroy the One Ring. He's a super interesting character and it's a shame that he was cut out from Peter Jackson's movie due to time constraints and also because he wasn't essential to the plot, but I think he is a very interesting character with a lot of depth and dimension. And that's why I want to sculpt him today, because aside from a few illustrations, we only have his book description, which is in this excerpt. There was another burst of song, and then suddenly, hopping and dancing along the path, there appeared above the reeds an old battered hat with a tall crown and a long blue feather stuck in the band. With another hop and a bound, there came into view a man, or so it seemed. At any rate, he was too large and heavy for a hobbit, if not quite tall enough for one of the big people. Though he made noise enough for one, stumping along with great yellow boots on his thick legs and charging through grass and rushes like a cow going down to drink. He had a blue coat and a long brown beard. His eyes were blue and bright, and his face was red as a ripe apple, but creased into 100 wrinkles of laughter. So all the pieces are coming together, and I'm gonna take that and turn it into a full-blown sculpture, and I really hope you enjoy this process. And before we get started, I just launched my next original character plush, Otto the Raccoon Guide. If you want to learn more about this character, check out the video link in the description box below. He is the next guide to be immortalized in plush form. He's got fuzzy hair, embroidered details, a little bit of airbrushing on his cheeks. He's got his trusty flashlight. He's super detailed, I would argue my most detailed plush yet. And of course he comes with a hang tag with his entire backstory on it. So if you want to grab this guy and add him to your Hidden World plush collection, head on over to aceofclay.com before he's gone. And now without further ado, let's make Tom Bombadil. Alright, let's make Tom Bombadil. I've got my wooden plaque here with 2 holes drilled for my armature wire, and I'm shaping out his shoulders and legs, and then I'm going to attach his arms with another piece of wire. Now I'm going to pose the armature, and I decided to have one leg up in the air like this, sort of in this skipping, jumping pose, just to reflect his jolly personality. Now I'm going to start bulking out his torso, and since this guy has a little bit of extra meat on his bones, I'm going to use some aluminum foil as the core, and then go on top of this with my Super Sculpey Ultralight. This essentially just conserves ultralight. But before I add the ultralight, I just want to brush on a little bit of Bacon Bond so it sticks just right. And now I'm just going to mold and shape out his underlying structure. I love using ultralight for this because it can be baked in large chunks without cracking. After popping in another wire for his neck, we're going to go bake this. And once it's baked and cooled down, we're going to start covering it in our final layer of clay. For this project, I'm using Super Sculpey Original. I'm just going to cover everything in a nice even sheet of clay and then start working on his limbs. To get the clay to adhere to that aluminum wire well, I'm just brushing on some Bacon Bond first. And I rolled out his thigh and I'm cutting a slit through it, not going all the way through to the other side, and I'm just going to put it on like a hot dog bun, right onto my wire. And I'm going to use this same process to create the rest of his legs. Just like his book description, I want him to have some pretty large clunky boots. So we're going to go ahead and create those now with another little sheet of clay, and then slide on the foot part and start sculpting that and making that look like a boot. Using my Explorer tool, let's add a nice little seam. Now I'm going to use some rolled out Cos clay to create the top of the boots, like so, and the reason I'm using Cos clay is because it stays flexible after it's baked and I don't have to worry about this thin little piece of clay breaking. So let's finish that off with a seam and then add some wrinkles to his pants. And to complete the boot, let's just add the sole. Now for a little heel. Now, as I was working on his other leg, I realized that it was turned outward way too much. So I'm going to have to go in and break out all that ultralight that I put in there just so I can reposition the leg. And I'm really glad that I did this because that would have looked really weird if I didn't change that. So we're just cracking off the ultralight and then we're just going to resculpt everything, which isn't too bad because we didn't get too far with that leg. And look, it's like nothing ever happened. After finishing his second leg off camera, we're going to go ahead and start adding some folds and wrinkles to his upper half. Eventually, this will be his bright blue jacket. Now for the part of the jacket that hangs below his waist, I'm using some Cos clay again so it doesn't break, and I just want to cut a piece big enough, like so, and then attach it where it needs to be and make sure all the wrinkles look nice and purposeful. Once that's all placed, let's go ahead and blend the top edge of my Cos clay into my Super Sculpey original. Cos clay and Sculpey work together flawlessly. Now we're going to finish off that coat with some buttons. Using my Super Poker, we're going to press on some side seams and some pockets. Now using my Super Poker again, after I get that last pocket on, we're going to weather things a little bit by adding tiny nicks around the edges. For the final step on this part of his body, I'm going to mix together some Bacon Bond and clay softener and stipple it onto the surface to create a nice texture. I love this texture, I love how it looks, I don't know why, I just do, and I do it to everything. And once his body yaddy yaddy is looking good, let's go ahead and pre-bake that and then start working on his head. I'm using some Super Sculpey Living Doll on top of a ball of aluminum foil that I jabbed a skewer into to create his head. Now I'm just going to press out where his eyes are going to go and then push in the eye sockets with my medium ball stylus and then start refining the features. Now to make my life more difficult, I mean to give him some more expression, I'm going to open his mouth. I just want to see where everything's going to go before I start putting any detail on. And now I just want to pop in that ball of clay for his eye, and I'm going to sculpt the eyelids into that. I'm not going to add more clay for them, if that makes sense. Now I just popped on some more clay to bring out that cheek. I want to give him a nice, jolly, almost Santa looking face. And at this point, this guy's looking more like Gollum than Tom Bombadil, but that's okay, just trust the process. Now we're gonna work on his chin and his lower jaw, and then just kind of bounce around until I'm happy with different areas. I'm the kind of sculptor where I have to work on everything simultaneously. I can't just focus on one area unless I know the other areas are gonna look good too. So like, this is why I don't use epoxy sculpt often, for example, due to its, short working time. Now I just added some more clay up to his brow. And the eye area is extremely important because if one little thing is off, it's going to throw off the whole thing. So if you're working on eyes, just take your time and don't stop until they look right. Now I'm just going to work my way down and bring out his jawline and add his chin. This makes a world of difference. Adding the chin always takes the face from I don't know what to wow, it looks like someone. Once I have his first eye to a good point, we're going to go ahead and confidently sculpt the second one. Now, so his eyes don't fall off his face, I'm going to bring out his brow bone even more. And the last facial feature we're going to add is his nose. I'm going to give him a nice bulbous round nose. Using this cone shaper, we're going to press in some wrinkles around his eyes. And I'm going to use the super poker to add the forehead wrinkles. And how about some dimples? Now that the face is looking pretty good, let's go ahead and pop on his eyebrows. I want to be very careful to seamlessly blend these into his skin so they're not just sitting on top of his face. Thank you BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. I have so many things planned for my channel this year and my business in general, but while I'm working on all of that, I don't want to forget about my mental health. Wearing so many different hats and having to deal with so many different things can really take a toll, and that's where BetterHelp can help. BetterHelp makes starting therapy so much easier and less intimidating for a lot of people. BetterHelp lets you have therapy sessions as a phone call, video chat, or even messaging, whatever version of therapy is most comfortable for you. BetterHelp can match you with over 30,000 therapists in their network based on your needs, preferences, and location, which gives you a wider range of expertise than may be available in your city. To get started, you just fill out a questionnaire to answer some questions about what you're going through. Then, BetterHelp can match you with a therapist to help you. And you'll get your therapist match in most cases within 48 hours. From there, you can schedule therapy sessions at a time that's convenient for you. If for whatever reason you don't feel your therapist is a perfect fit, you can always switch therapists with a click of a button in your settings for no additional charge. This is a favorite feature for a lot of people because you don't have to break up with your therapist and start the whole process over again. So if you're like me and you want to continue this year taking care of your mental health, head on over to betterhelp.com/aceofclay. That's better, H-E-L-P, and join over 4 million people who have used BetterHelp to live a happier, healthier life. Just click the link below in the description box, or again, visit betterhelp.com/aceofclay. Doing so helps support this channel and gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps. Thanks again, BetterHelp, for sponsoring today's video. Now back to our sculpture. All right, now back to the body. Let's go ahead and pop on those arms. And of course, we've got to add some folds and wrinkles. And because the sleeves are going to be somewhat free hanging, I'm using cosplay to make them. And once the arms are done, we're going to go ahead and add some more of that stippling texture all over those. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because I need to sculpt his hand still. So I'm just going to make those out of cosplay as well so that his little fingers don't break off. almost forgot he needs his upper teeth. So I'm just adding this tiny little snake of clay up there, and looks good. Now let's stick on some ears and we can bake this guy again. And there's his head. Let me know if this reminds you of anyone. Your uncle, your grandpa. Now I just want to remove fingerprints by brushing on some clay softener, and as you can see, my clay softener Bacon Bond brush has passed away. So I've replaced it with this fine specimen. Alright, he's looking good. Let's get him in the oven. And once he's baked and cooled down, let's make his hat. I'm just adding some clay on top of some aluminum foil and shaping it out. It's going to be a long, nice hat. Gonna make the brim, rolling it out with my Ace of Clay clay roller without the thickness rings. And then we're just going to attach the two pieces, add some folds and wrinkles, and call it good. Now using several pieces of clay, I'm blocking out the shape of his hair, kind of filling in all that negative space underneath his head, and then blending everything together to get a nice solid shape. Once I have the shape down and I added the clay where it needs to be, I'm going to start adding the hair texture with this weird little spoon tool. I want to add lots of peaks and valleys, so it's nice and textured, kind of curly, kind of wavy. Now I'm just going to stick on his beard, get that to the size that I want it to be, and then we're going to texture this like the hair, but like beard hair instead, so coarse and curly. Now let's bring it all together with a good stash. Once he's fully assembled, it's time for some final touches. I'm just gonna weather his hat a little bit, add a band around the crown of the hat, and then we're gonna make him a nice little feather out of some cosplay and wire. Now we're just going to brush on some more Bacon Bond and clay softener to remove fingerprints, add some more of that texture, and bake it. And once he's baked and cooled down, it's time for paint. I'm using an airbrush for the majority of this project, and I'm just going to give him a nice brown base coat. The paints that I'm using are Army Painter Air. I chose brown because it's complementary color to blue, which will be the color of his jacket, and I think it'll be a nice undertone for the entire figure given the rest of his color palette. And of course, brown beard. Now I'm just gonna roughly tape off the areas around his jacket just so I don't get too much blue overspray when I paint it. And here we're just gonna add that blue little by little, being very patient and enjoying the process. Now for this project, I'm not going to do any washes. I'm going to go in and meticulously paint all of the highlights in his coat with a lighter shade of blue. I'm just going in there and trying to hit it where the light would hit. Once I've got my first layer of highlights on, I'm going to go in with an even lighter blue and just kiss those areas one more time. And using a darker blue, I'm going to go in between all the highlights. Now to blend all my highlighting work, I'm going in with a light airbrushing coat of my base blue color. This is going to really melt everything together. And on top of that, we're going to airbrush some lighter blue here and there. Now for another quick round of highlighting with the brush. After airbrushing some lowlights here, we're going to go in with a sort of greenish blue color to make his coat look even more blue. I just want to hit him from an upper angle so that it's like the light is shining down on him. And now using a brush, I'm going to paint his beard. Now normally when I paint, I start with a medium tone and then add shadows and then add highlights. But in this case, for this project, I'm essentially starting with the shadows, the dark brown primer coat, and I'm going to slowly build my way up lighter. I'm using one color of paint for the skin and I'm just layering it and layering it to get a nice even coverage. For the lightest layer of his skin, I added a little bit of white to his skin color. Now to add some redness to his face, of course I'm going in with some red gently on his nose and cheeks. This goes with the book description that his face was as red as a crisp apple. And then once I get that red on, once it's dry, I put some watered down regular skin color on top of it just to calm it down a little bit. Now I'm just going to paint the whites of his eyes very carefully with this very tiny brush. And we're adding his bright blue irises, pupils, and a little white dot to add a little sparkle. Now we're just going to do a little bit of dry brushing to add some more dimension to his beard. And then paint his hand just like we painted his face. Lots of layers. And right here I realized that I didn't need that airbrush box anymore, so back to your normal set. Now let's go ahead and work on his yellow boots. Again, same process as painting his skin and hands. We're just going to layer that yellow, bring it up more on those raised areas, and get it all colored in. And of course, for some highlights, just like we did on his jacket, I'm going in with a brighter yellow. Now let's finish up his hat. Now to darken up his beard in certain areas, I'm just adding a little bit of watered down black. And of course, we can't forget to paint his feather blue. and the buttons. Now let's bring his face together and carefully paint its teeth. Now we're going to do something a little special with the base. I'm going to paint the edge of it brown, and then we're going to paint the top green, and I'm going to add some little miniature fake grass on top of it, and then some cracked cork rocks. To attach the grass, I'm just using some good old Mod Podge. And let's sprinkle on our grass like we're adding glitter to a project in elementary school. Pat it on. Dump off the excess, of course. And then stick Tom Bombadil on. And add those rocks I was talking about. Alright, one more rock. Now say it with me. And he's done! Tom Bombadil is complete. Let me know how you think I did in the comments. This was such a fun sculpture. I loved making him. I would love to stay in Middle-earth with you guys and sculpt more Lord of the Rings characters, so if you have any in mind, let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching and being here. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok at Ace of Clay. Don't forget to grab your Otto the Raccoon Guide plush, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.